Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's session on enhancing the human rights mindset, a dialogue to explore a complex question: how to make human rights due diligence both impactful and practical for businesses to implement. Globally, evolving regulations are giving strong momentum to the topics, but they also create uncertainty for businesses who must navigate these new rules while also remaining under the same pressure to achieve business goals. The landscape in Asia presents unique challenges, but also unique opportunities for businesses to lead the transition. Companies are building local capacities and advancing their sustainability strategies independently. However, this requires effective risk management, the ability to engage with credible and consistent data, and clear pathways for compliance, decarbonization, decent work, and we aim to explore today how we can foster these key elements and foster a business and human rights focused mindset in the session. The session today is jointly organized by 3 partners: GIZ Bangladesh, which implements various projects in Bangladesh in the textile sector and on topics related to promoting decent work with over 20 projects. The other organizing partners are IGCC, the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, which was incorporated in 1956 to promote economic relations between India and Germany. It's part of a worldwide network of German chambers of commerce abroad, and the sustainability department of the chamber has supported over 500 company representatives in this topic since the implementation of the German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act. The third partner is the German Agency for Business and Economic Development, which is AWE, and serves as an entry point for German development cooperation with companies engaging with emerging or developing countries, acting on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. AWE bridges the gap between development cooperation and the private sector and promotes sustainable private investment through tailored advice on funding, financing, networking, and project development. It also hosts the German Help Desk on Business and Human Rights, which is a free service that advises companies on how to implement due diligence. And representing the organizers, I have my colleague Michael Claude from GIZ Bangladesh, who's the head of sustainability in the textile industry project. He's been based in Dhaka since 2021 and has worked in different roles with GIZ since 2010. He's also a trained lawyer and has worked with TVET in the Palestinian territories and African Court on Human and People's Rights in several countries. Additionally, my name is Roxana Hildu. I represent the sustainability team at the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, where I've been working for around 3.5 years supporting companies on topics related to business and human rights and decarbonization. The aim of the session today is to share practical experiences of implementing human rights due diligence. And to bring the topics to life, we're pleased to be joined by a deeply experienced group of speakers with diverse perspectives. So first, we have Mr. Sahil Jain, who is a distinguished professional with over 18 years of experience in the manufacturing industry, with a strong focus on the automotive sector. He currently serves as the CEO of Hirschvogel Components India and is also the COO board member of the Hirschvogel Group, one of the world's largest automotive component suppliers, headquartered in Germany with a global presence and with 8 manufacturing facilities across Europe, Asia, and North America, serving major Tier 1 suppliers and OEMs worldwide. The next speaker is Sheikh Hussain Mohammad Mustafiz, who is an industry leader in Bangladesh. He's the managing director of Cute Dress Industry Limited, one of the most transparent ready-made garment factories in the country. He also happens to be a director in charge of sustainability in the current board of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, BGMEA. He is a recipient of the Professional Fellowship from the US Department of State. We also have Sheikh Shuchita Jahan Sneha sitting next to Mr. Sahil, who is a development practitioner with over 12 years of experience in partnerships, sustainability, and business strategy. She currently leads the Responsible Business Hub at the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association and works to strengthen industry capacity on the topic. And last but not least, we have Mr. Peter Ford, who is the Energy Policy Lead, Garment and Clean Energy Skills at Energy Lab, Asia, out of Phnom Penh, Cambodia. He has vast experience in advising on transformative action, especially in the energy sector, and has worked in Hong Kong and Dhaka as part of H&M Group's energy team. So with that quick introduction, we will get into the session today, which is divided into two parts. We'll begin with a traditional panel-style discussion to speak about the experiences and lessons learned from the speakers today, after which Michael will take over for a more interactive segment to identify key enablers and ideas from the audience today. So to begin with the panel discussion, I touched briefly in my introduction upon the evolving legal frameworks of due diligence, which often create uncertainty for businesses. So I wanted to ask first to Sahil, how do you navigate this, and how has your approach changed? Your approach to human rights due diligence changed and developed over recent years?
Yeah, thank you, Roxana. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to speak here to such an esteemed audience with such esteemed panelists. So thanks a lot for that opportunity. I mean, it's both exciting and intimidating to sit at the UN forum, but okay, I'll try. Now, coming to the question. Evolving, yes. I think the landscape on sustainability in general, on regulations has been quite strongly evolving over the last years. But uncertainty, that's one part of the question. I don't see that there is an uncertainty in the direction that the whole regulatory landscape has been taking. So if we start from the last 25 years, if we look at the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals of the UN that were 2000, the year 2000, then after that the SDGs in 2015, the Sustainable Development Goals, or even then now closer the LKSG. So we represent the German side of the business in Asia Pacific. From Europe, there is a strong push in compliance with the SDGs to roll out new regulations, and that is the LKSG in Germany in 2021, the CSDDD from the European Union in 2023. So there's a lot of regulations, but all of these, so there's a complex landscape, but all of these are moving in the same direction. So that's I think it's not uncertain. In fact, on the contrary, I would say it's quite clear that we are moving in that direction. So even closer to home now, coming from India, we see that also the Indian regulatory landscape has been quite clear in that direction. So if we look in 2013 in India, the tax law was changed, the corporate tax law was changed such that from 2013 onwards, 2% of the profits have to be, of the last 3 years, the average of the 2% of that must be paid for CSR activities. So that was part of implementing the corporate social responsibility mindset in the Indian private sector. So, like I said, the direction is clear. Now, coming to the second part of the question, how to navigate this landscape, how to navigate this evolving landscape. Once you have it clear that there's no uncertainty, it's clear the direction that we are going. There are two ways that you can take. Either it's a voluntary approach or it is a compliance-driven. So, you could either voluntarily do what you're supposed to do. Because now the direction is clear. So we decided that it is definitely worth to stay ahead of the voluntary requirements, so of the mandatory requirements. So whatever mandates are needed, we try to stay a step ahead, because the next year they become mandatory, the voluntary part becomes mandatory. So the idea is to stay ahead of the compliance requirements because of the direction that this is taking. So on a voluntary part, we looked at the ISO 37005, I think it's called, where you could get your organization certified for the whole UN SDG sustainability topic. So it's simple. You go to an organization that helps to put ISO certification, and you get that done. On the other hand, we see that there is a strong drive also from the customers. So our customers especially are looking for this compliance on their part, because they are mostly stock exchange listed companies, and for them it's mandatory to check their suppliers. So the push has been coming from the customers. We see that this customer supplier relationship in the business value chain, it's the most effective and efficient to drive this topic, because on the surface these laws and these regulations all look different, but at the core they are actually quite similar. So that's I think how to navigate. I mean, together with the business partners, together with the customers, you have to act as one and ensure that as a supply chain we are complying. That's I think what I'd say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sahil. And on that note, I want to go now to Mustafiz to get his perspective. Mr. Mustafiz, as a garment manufacturer in Bangladesh, do you also face the tension between shifting regulations and long-term business planning and navigation of the supply chain due diligence requirements?
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me in this panel, and I'm really happy to share my experience and what we are facing challenges, I can say that. I would like to start with one thing, what you mentioned in your introductory speech, that our factory is considered as one of the most compliant factory in Bangladesh. By saying these things, I would like to share some our achievements that is would be very interesting for you when you are listening from me. That is, we have achieved some zeros. I would like to say some zeros that we achieved so far last few years. I think after the COVID, I can specifically mention. For example, our factory is now like a zero waste factory. So we have no landfill. So everything is recycled, reused, repurposely used. So that is the thing. That is the zero we achieved. Another zero we achieved very shortly. That is a zero liquid discharge. So our factory is not discharging any effluent out of the premises. So everything is completely recycled. So that is the zero we achieved. Another zero we achieved, I can say that there is a zero casualties in our factory. Last 3-4 years, we found there is no casualties happen in the factory. Another zero I'd like to mention that there is no fire incident happen in our factory. So last couple of years, there is nothing happened. So that means everything is under control and everything is going in a very smooth way. Another zero I also mentioned that there is no zero forced labor in our factory. So we have a monitoring system that we are trying to find out there's anything happened like a forced labor or something like this. But the problem is that we are achieving a lot of zeros, but when we have a higher ambition, for example, if we wanted to go for a zero emission, then now I feel that our brands who are producing at our facility, then they are, then I found that because if I wanted to go for a zero, a net zero factory, then I have to maybe invest $500,000, for example. And I found that it is me only who will actually has to invest, maybe have to borrow money, and then I have to invest to become a net zero factory. Our buyers, they are none of the buyers. We are working with about several, like more than 30 plus brands in our factory. They are producing, and I found none of them are interested to invest and to collaborate with us with this journey, because end of the day, they are even pushing for the prices. They are even, there are some funny things come up in our. The buyers sometimes are telling that now you become so efficient, so you should reduce your cost, you should reduce your price. So that kind of thing. So we are, as a manufacturer, we are investing a lot of money to make it more compliant, more, when you are talking about the due diligence law is just come few years back on our table, but we are practicing these things for many years. Maybe, I think, maybe 6-7 years we are practicing these things. To make it more sustainable, more compliant factory. But when it is the question of the shared responsibility of the buyers and the sellers, then we found that the brands are not that much coming forward to help us, to collaborate with us, that how we can be more compliant, more sustainable factory. So the problem is that when we are talking about this due diligence in a place like even, and when we are talking in bigger seminars or in a conference, that sounds really nice. But the ground reality is that all the burdens actually coming to the manufacturers. I think the buyers, they are not doing any kinds of cooperation or the collaboration to make the manufacturer more compliant in terms of the due diligence. So on the other hand, I can also mention that the brands, every brands, they have two departments. For example, one have a sustainability department, another is a purchasing department. The sustainability department come and they audit and they push for all the requirements. It is from USA, from European Union, whatever their compliance they require. But when the purchasing department comes, they don't see each other. It looks like they don't know each other, and then they are pushing for the prices because they say that, okay, this is my price. If you can do, I will place the order. Otherwise, not. So something is happening like this way. So what I wanted to say that if you really wanted to make the industry like a due diligence compliant or ready for due diligence mechanism, the shared responsibility is the main core issue that has to be talk about, so that it has to be a collaborative approach. It cannot be a one-sided approach. So that is the challenges we are facing. And I would like to say also that when we are planning for our future, strategy, most of the cases I found that buyers are still shopping around, even though who are really looking forward for a really highly compliant factory, but still they are shopping around and sometimes they are not comparing from the apple to apple comparison with when you are talking about the prices. So that is the thing I would like to say, and I would like to to conclude with these things, that until and unless the brands and the manufacturer, if they are not feeling that this sustainable practice or this due diligence mechanism is a shared responsibility, we cannot get rid of this problem. So the problem will be continuing, and we'll be talking every year, and it will no changes will happen.
Thank you, Mr. Fees, for that answer. So interesting perspectives from both you and Sahil on, of course, the topic of shared responsibility, which will be key in the just transition, and also from the perspective that staying ahead of the regulations and implementing the principles of supply chain due diligence at its core will also help companies to keep ahead and ensure that they already have everything in place when the time comes in terms of compliance. So I want to move on now to Sneha and ask, as part of the Responsible Business Help Desk at BGMEA, where you work with various companies in the textile sector in Bangladesh, what opportunities and uncertainties do you see in the area of business and human rights?
Thank you very much for your question, and thank you for inviting me. I'm glad that as a practitioner, I'm able to represent the Bangladesh garment industry. So as for your question, yes, we've heard some very hands-on experiences from an owner. From BGMA, from the association, we have taken some initiatives on the from the ESG platform. In collaboration with GIZ, we have established one platform where we are collecting ESG data in line with the SDG goals. So while there are some realities, we are also working and practicing some of the things just to reach the due diligence part. So over there, we have been able to collect more than 100 factories' data. Out of them, we have perhaps verified around 57 suppliers' data. So from there, we have some interesting findings that almost 100% of them are paying equal wages to their both women workers and men workers. There have been significant investments in terms of their health, occupational health, and all of those. There are social perspectives, human rights. Almost 100% of them have their committees, like anti-sexual harassment committees, participatory committees. Those are there. Those are there in place. Trade unions are functional. All of those are there. And for environmental perspectives, around 70% of the materials are like sustainable material mixes, like those are there. And then, of course, there have been significant achievements in terms of like water discharges and effluent discharges. And we have been trying to work on the GHG emission as well. And around 10% of the factories that we have surveyed, they are using their renewable energies, like they have shifted to renewable energies, like so they have installed rooftop solar panels. And I think the real numbers are much more, like when we go, if you collect data from the whole industry. So while these places are there, so we do see that a lot of opportunities are there to work on. And of course, when we are bringing in so many stakeholders together, there's a lot of things, lots of opportunities to work on, and owners have their interest as well. But one of the challenges is not only shared responsibility. One of the responsibility from also the brands or throughout the supply chain is that, having different requirements from different buyers, and having to, the compliance people, the compliance team, the human resources team, those people are always reporting on different data platforms all the time. And there are like, so much time and cost is being taken up for reporting different data to different people at different data platforms to different buyers. And this is like, I think we have examples of like suppliers where there are 4 audits going on the same day. Like when we try to, give out trainings to our suppliers, management people on human rights and environmental due diligence, we invite people, they agree to come, and then on the day, they do not show up saying, we have a audit going on today, I'm sorry, I cannot come. So that is the reality. So of course, keeping these in mind, BGMEA is committing itself to go achieve a unified code of conduct. We are rigorously working on that at national level as well. So these, when shared responsibility comes, it's not only, of course, investment also. There should be a responsibility of understanding the pain points of the owners, of the suppliers. Because when it comes to the supply chain, the tier 0, it starts from tier 0, not tier 1. That is important as well. And then we can, of course, achieve down the line. So I think, yeah, I'll conclude that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sneha. Of course, the shared responsibility concept that Mustafi's highlighted, and then you mentioned that very aptly it begins with tier 0. You also touched upon the sustainability considerations, and of course, sustainability, circularity, and human rights are also deeply interconnected. And with that, I want to move on to Peter and ask, based on your experience in textiles and the energy sector in Cambodia, what are some promising entry points for industries to try to become more circular and more decent work-oriented and more sustainable?
Thank you. A pleasure to share a stage with you all. I guess I'm biased on the topic of energy, so I'm going to say the entry point is energy on this. I think, unlike some of the other areas that we talk about when it comes to carbon and decarbonization, there are very clear scientific targets and very clear numbers that can be aimed for and literally achieved. So, and this then is aligned with commitments that the brands have made globally. So if you look at UNFCCC's fashion charter, that holds the signatory brands to cut their absolute carbon emissions by about 50% by 2030, which is a very real number and it's getting very close. Under the RE100, a number of brands committed to all of their electricity being from a renewable source by 2030 as well. That includes countries where that is literally impossible today. And these are countries that make garments. So again, there's 4 years on a target like this. So this is an entry point that really should be front of mind. Under the SBTI commitments of brands, that holds them to net zero by 2040 or 2050, depending on where they're from. Most European brands are looking at 2040. The rest of the world's brands tend to be looking at a 2050 timeline. So this is the entry point. This is front of mind, I would say. Unlike living wage and water and other topics that may end up, unfortunately, being debated ad nauseum, the climate targets are very close. And so the way in then would be through renewable electricity. And how then can brands, can factories, can governments, can industry bodies work together to have a voice, because everyone needs to align on this topic. So, I mean, Portugal, as an example, is aiming for a 100% renewable electricity grid by 2030. If a country has a grid that is 100% renewable, we don't have to talk about solar panels on factory roofs anymore. We don't have to talk about PPAs. We don't have to talk about RECs. Yeah. It's all done. You don't need to think about CapEx investment for your solar panels. So that should be the goal of everyone. It sounds simplistic when I put it like this, I know, but that is where we should be aiming. And then using our voices together. Some brands talk loudly on this topic and are acting. If you read Stand.Earth's annual report of the brands, or Fashion Revolution's annual report of decarbonization, they will tell you who's doing the most, and it might surprise some of you who's near the top on that. It's not the brands that we might think it is. And that's a good indication of who's putting action and money behind the talk. It's not just making demands, but actually supporting. And there are initiatives. AII, the Apparel Impact Institute, has just launched a new grant program to support factories to decarbonize. FSI, which is an H&M supported organization, is also offering low interest loans. It's not from a space of zero, but it is, should have been done 10 years ago. So there we go. And I think, governments are starting to act on this topic. Vietnam's DPPA, so its corporate power purchase agreement framework is live now after 8 years of hard work. Bangladesh has just piloted its first PPA, supported by H&M Group, and it is a model that has to scale and has to grow. There are some countries that are not talking about this. So Cambodia, unfortunately, is in a space right now where you cannot accurately claim renewable energy at a factory level very easily. RECs are not available, PPAs are not discussed, and rooftop solar is in a unique situation. So other countries are prioritizing this more, and this is how we can all work together on this topic, because it is the one with the most imminent deadlines. And as you mentioned with how brands do their buying and how they do their purchasing, brands can be very fickle. And if someone decides that moving an order to a country that can already reach its targets is easier or cheaper than fixing factories in certain countries or helping, guaranteed that will happen. And 2030 is very close. Yeah. So I don't want to sound too doom-filled here, but I think that would be my entry point for all discussions. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter, for highlighting the climate-focused aspect of how it connects to human rights, and also it will, of course, be important to look more at energy and renewable capacity to prevent the growing heat stress for workers. And I want to jump now to Sahil. We have one more round of questions, and I ask everyone to keep the answers to less than 2 minutes, please, so we stay on time. So I wanted to ask, your organization's objective, as any organization's is of course to grow business. However, Hirschvogel also aims to balance sustainability with its business values. So could you provide some examples of how sustainability measures could create business value and have an impact on human rights and the environment while still being in line with business values?
Yeah, a very interesting discussion. So listening to all the other panelists also, I mean, it's clear that there has to be a shared responsibility among the whole supply chain And the cost pressure, I think it's always going to be there. I'm not sure the garments business is more in the limelight about the cost pressures, but I think automotive is not easy. Automotive is not easy. It goes in a similar direction where we are faced with very tough cost targets all across the globe. That's for us also a similar point. What we have been doing is we are trying to work at the intersection of the sustainability and competitiveness. So a lot of practices, and I think like you pointed out, a lot of practices from a sustainability, from an environmental, from a human rights perspective, are closely linked to improving the competitiveness. So of course, some are costing a little bit more, which means somebody has to pay for it. But there are a lot of ideas, there are a lot of practices where you can really work on the intersection of these two. And we have worked on a very clear focus that we work exactly on that intersection. Maybe I just have a couple of examples to that. Of course, the energy part is clear. At the moment, we know it. I know it very well for India. Renewable energy coming from solar panels is much cheaper than what we get out of the grid. If you get it from the rooftop, like you said, it's a no-brainer. You have to do it. It's cheaper, so it makes you more competitive. In fact, on a global landscape, I think in this region of the world, we are blessed with a lot of sun, which makes it much more competitive than to do it in Europe, for example. So that's something that I'll not even talk about. Of course, energy reduction practices, so how to use more efficient motors, how to use more efficient equipment in the plant. So that's one example. But another one, and that's more related to the human aspect, it links to, for example, the UN SDG goal of good health and well-being. So if you focus on the health of employees, on the ergonomics of the workplace, on the occupational health and safety, there you see that, or we have been seeing that you get a much higher productivity out of the employees because people are more motivated to work in a safe workplace. We see that really. And that leads to a higher productivity of the employees. Higher productivity of the employees leads then, of course, to higher wages because, as an enterprise, you cannot afford to pay more wages for nothing. So every year you have to increase the wages, but you have to keep a certain balance. And for that, the productivity must increase in the manufacturing industry. So that's one way how to increase the productivity leading to higher wages, and higher wages, of course, again links back to the UN SDG goals. So that's, I think, the kind of intersection that I'm talking about, that you have to invest. I'm sure you'll have to invest a little bit of money up front. The last example, I think, and that's for us as the Hirschvogel Group, now I talk at the group level, it's very interesting that the syndicated loans that we get in the meanwhile from our banks, so we have big banks and a lot of loans from the banks, they're all now linked. So we voluntarily accepted to link our loans to KPIs that are related to all the due diligence aspects, so human rights, to the SDG goals. So we pay a lower interest, and I think, Peter, you referred to that, lower interest rates for the loans. So we get really lower interest rates for the loans, which means that's another stakeholder. So it's not just the customers, suppliers, there's also the aspect of the financiers. They are also aligned to these goals. They need to get more aligned. So it's not enough yet. But once everybody is aligned, I see this is a great opportunity for us in the coming years. So I'm quite optimistic about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil. Moving on to Sneha, I wanted to ask, maybe in response to Sahil, and also from your past experience and the discussions, where could the textile sector learn from the automotive sector and vice versa?
Thank you. Well, of course, thank you. Interesting question, because there are two different industries completely having different operations and all of that. And of course, when it comes to environmental impacts, the automotive industry has a whole different level, in terms of emission and all of that, while textile sector not so much compared. And particularly if I'm talking about like Bangladeshi textile industry, like we are perhaps contributing around 0.6% of the total globally emissions. So that's absolutely not comparable. But what's interesting is that the complex supply chain that both industries have, that is something that we have a very common and similarity over there. And I think when these legislations are coming, and even for our easier operations, the complex supply chain mapping, the tech part, the automation part, that is something that we perhaps can learn from them and adopt from them. That is I think the automotive sector is a little bit ahead of us over there, because when it comes to the supply chain, again, as I'm saying, that when we do the due diligence from tier, I'm just hoping that everybody is, just because I'm always practicing this, I always think that everybody knows, but tier 0 being the brands and the buyers or the retailers, and tier 1 being the manufacturers, and then comes their suppliers, and their suppliers up to tier 4, the cultivators or at that level. I think spinners are tier 3. So the processes and all that. So when we are trying to do the supply chain mapping, that's a very complex thing. And when we are just right now, since at the beginning, we are stuck around the tier 0 and tier 1 part. But then again, when we achieve that, as tier 1 also, they have their responsibilities to be shared with tier 2 and then 3 and like that. So that while that reality is there, yes, we do need to learn a lot of automation and those tech advancement from the automotive industry. And one thing I think that the automotive industry can learn from us, and perhaps I think any industry can in fact learn from us, is that the resilience that we have. I think the constant price shifting, the buyers shifting, this happening and that happening, that's quite frequent in the textile sector. And being the second largest exporters globally from Bangladesh, I think that is something that we have achieved, being resilient. So yeah, that is something I think not only automotive, all industries should actually learn from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. And you touched also briefly upon the data collection, automation topics. And from that, I wanted to ask Mustafiz, the collection of reliable data and identifying the social and ecological KPIs like Sahil spoke of is still a difficult endeavor. So what solutions do you think could help improve data collection across the supply chain?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I can be, as my company can be a good example of this data collection system. Actually, this year we have published our sixth sustainability report, and we are as per GRI standard, and we created a data collection system in our factory where it's completely visualized system. For example, daily basis, whatever, the energy we are consuming, it is written over there. Everybody can see. Whatever the energy we are getting from the renewable sources, that is also written over there. The water, waste, whatever. Everything is written daily basis. So we make a system in the company that all the information can be visualized. I think if the factory, especially in Bangladesh or anywhere, if you have a visualization system of the data recording, then it is easy for everybody to see the impact, what's going on, and take the decision. So I think when we are end of the year, when we wanted to publish our sustainability report, all the information are ready because we are doing it on a daily basis. And the good thing is that I can give you a good example of this record keeping, that in general, in our factory, we need about 40,000 liters of water daily. That is, I exactly know that this is the water I need for the daily consumption and all the things. And one day I found that our factory, they're writing that they are spending like 60,000 liters of water. Some days like 55,000. So then we find out why it is suddenly grown up. We found out there is a leakage in our plumbing system. Because of this data, we discovered that there is a leak in the plumbing system, and then it is draining the water. So like this way, if we have the data collection system is completely visualized, I think it is very easy to control and report. But one thing I would like to mention about our supply chain, that is, since our supply chain doesn't have that system, so it is difficult for us. Sometimes we wanted to recently with the due diligence law, there is a new thing come up. It's called it's a digital product passport. So there is the full traceability of the product. That is also buyers are pushing for this information. And right now, we are not only writing the names of the factories where we are getting our accessories, where we have dyed the fabrics. They are also looking for that how much water we have used, how much GHG emissions, what is the energy consumption. That kind of data is very difficult to collect unless all the tiers they have this data collection system. So this is very important that if you wanted to make this digital product passport, I mean the full traceability, every tier of the factories they must have this data collection system. I mean, then we can see the changes in the real world. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to report us and to be more sustainable.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Fiz. Robust data collection system that also, cooperates with your suppliers would also be beneficial for other sectors as well. And I wanted to close with Peter's perspective on the collaboration aspect. So perhaps using renewable energy as an example, how should different stakeholders and actors, policymakers, brands and buyers, and also producers, including the deeper supply chain, collaborate or assume distinct roles in this process?
Thank you. I think, first of all, everyone needs to agree that they have a role to play in decarbonisation, and that, they need to take part. It's not, I think, discussions on who's most at fault are philosophically interesting, but maybe not helpful at this point. As interesting as a discussion as it is. I think, if you've got brands have their commitments, which have deadlines, you've got governments that are working to safeguard jobs or grow jobs, and also hopefully save money on their energy by moving away from fossil fuels. And you've got factories somewhere in the middle of that. And ideally, the factories would benefit from both the brand side and the government side supporting and paying for everything and getting it all moving. As we have heard, in reality, the factories feel much more like the cost burden is on them. I think once you've got brands and factories and organizations working together with one single voice, governments will respond. They have to respond. We represent jobs, you represent GDP growth, you represent everything else. I think once that has then started on the big stuff, which is grid infrastructure development, which is corporate power purchase agreement frameworks, the big stuff that governments can do that smaller organizations can't, once that is up and running, then you can focus on everything else. You can look at, if a factory is confident that the government is working to supply grid-scale renewable energy, then it can look at what investments it needs to make at its own factory on energy efficiency, on rooftop solar, safe in the knowledge that orders are probably not going to move based on national level discussions. I think then you've got unions that can feel empowered to make decisions and talk to their members. You've got, again, organizations, and all of that flows from that. And this is a topic that's incredibly important, increasingly as things like heat stress comes to play, because that is going to increase factory energy at a time when everyone is telling factories to reduce their energy. So, it's a moving target that is getting harder, and it can only start from those initial collaboration discussions.
Thank you, Peter. Of course, it will take commitment and cooperation from different actors, and no single stakeholder can carry that alone, which is a fitting note to end the panel on. And I'd like to hand over to Michael now for the bit on enhancing the human rights mindset.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. It's 4:45, and now it's your turn. So we wanted to present here the overlap of topics that are beyond the mere human rights space. We've talked about human rights a lot. We've talked about circularity, traceability, all these other topics that require a proper mindset shift. And we've added money. Profit is relevant. So what we want to do now is to collect about 20 ideas or so that can be very specifically addressed with brands, with suppliers, with consumers even, and with governments. We will follow up on these 20 or so ideas. And then next year we will come back and we will report to all of you what has happened. And what do we mean? We mean we want to attract, we want to find ways how to attract or to nudge or to convince or to force more people into this space, into this identification with a different way of doing business with purpose towards the climate, towards the environment, and of course, first and foremost, towards our people. So how do we do that? We are facing two trends, as we heard, the race to bottom in an even more dynamic way, and then also innovation, future thinking, targets, etc., that are more connected to this mindset shift. So if I'm a consumer anywhere on this planet and it's the end of the month, where do I go for shopping? Where do I take my decision? Is it sustainable? Is it price-oriented? If I'm a CEO and I get the draft quarterly report, where do I look at? The money? What else? OSH, occupational health, safety and health, sustainability, success. And as we heard already from Mustafiz, if I'm in the merchandising or sourcing or production team and I'm in tough negotiations, how to convince me to then include again the CSR people and the targets that we have on the sustainability level. We have heard examples, bringing together the teams. We could also think that more bonus payments can be related to targets related to sustainability and human rights achievements and others. But what else? So, ladies and gentlemen, take out your phones if you want and participate through the Mentimeter, or just raise your hand and help us, because if you will not help us, the panel will have to help us, and they don't want to talk anymore. So is there any idea that you would think from your business, from your work, where we could shift practices? Or if you have a good example, if you do have in your companies bonus payments that are related to sustainability topics, if you have sustainability reports over the last couple of years and they have shifted them. The data example is fantastic to see, okay, we have a water leakage here, there we have a problem. Is there anything that you think we should take away and check over the next 12 months or so? Yes.
Yeah, let me start. I'm Joanne Carling with the Indigenous Peoples' Rights International. I'm curious in the discussion on the decarbonization, which of course we fully support that we need to decarbonize. So in relation to what we want investors, consumers to know is the source of energy clean or did not violate our rights? Because, for example, in the dam, where it's considered renewable energy, but the communities that are affected are not even consulted, and their consent is not given. And with the dam building, it destroyed their livelihoods. So it's asking one already marginalized sector to be sacrificed in order to have energy for business. So I think that's an important question to ask. Is the source of energy, even renewable energy, clean in terms of human rights record, and also its environment footprint could be another area to consider.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very relevant. Do no harm. And also the same discussion can be happening about photovoltaic systems. What happens when they get out? Will we have a mountain of garbage in 10, 15 years in Bangladesh because of the rooftop solar and other places? Very relevant to think things through, right? Not to have the short reaction just because it makes sense to add a couple of photovoltaic systems that maybe don't serve the purpose. If you could connect to a microphone so that, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be speaking from the area of divestments. When companies finish operating in a particular region and they are moving to another place, perhaps for want of sufficient resources, raw materials in certain communities. And as it regards to issues of due diligence, it's essential that communities are included in the human rights due diligence agreement or drafting or processes, because most times there are a lot of issues, backlog of issues that are left unattended to when companies leave. A lot of human rights impact issues that are left unattended, environmental issues, like we said, heaps of garbage that are unattended to, and it has human rights impact on the community. So it's a discussion, and at some point, the communities get to have a source of livelihood because of the existence of that company in that region or in that community. And when they leave, suddenly, perhaps for want of enough resources to continue businesses, the economic impact it has on the community is also at stake. So it's essential that communities are included in these discussions when it has to do, when human rights due diligence are carried out to ensure that these aspects are covered up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very valuable point. Let me just add that our friend Suryadeva always speaks about the business of human rights, right? Most of us, or some of us, are somehow getting our income because we are part of projects, we get funds for working on these topics in certain spaces. And of course, we have the ambition to have the perfect solution, right? And that should be our ambition. But what we want to do here is go a little bit, some steps back, and somehow acknowledge that profit needs to be there. I mean, I don't know which is the richest country in the world, maybe Switzerland or something. Probably if you go to Switzerland, to a sausage production space, you will find, on a different scale, but you will find similar challenges in salary payments, in environmental effects, and what to do with the waste, probably even with renewable energies, etc. So it will be very difficult, with all due respect to the experts in the textile and garment industry, to have a perfect socially and environmentally friendly industry that connects with the communities that are around the factories, etc. It's always a bit dark, it's always a bit shady, it's always low wage, that's pushing businesses. So how can we plant the seed within this circle to think differently, right? How can we convince, I mean, our friends from the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce tried to bring a lot of people. Hirschvogel came. Not more were interested. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but one. We heard from BGMEA, the data ESG platform, 2,000 factories, 50 are contributing. What's with the other 1,950? What's with the other members of the, we are in a niche topic. We are very much part of it, and we're very much fighting for a lot of things, but it's a niche topic. How do we reach out? How do we get more people into this conversation? That is a little bit, yes, please.
Well, thank you for making this point. I think reading some of these points that were made up there, I think the focus, what I see here is really on consumer awareness. But speaking from a global South perspective, in an economic environment that we are in right now, I don't think consumers really care for this. And we've done that. We've had this conversation. I represent National Commission for Human Rights in Pakistan, and we're trying to solve that issue. We're trying to, it's been 4 years that we're trying to sign up more businesses for human rights due diligence. And it's just, we've been stonewalled day after day after day. And I do agree, I think in the end, the bottom line is what does sell. But even breaking through that inertia has been problematic. I think one of the points raised was, and I guess that's business 101, that, you take it of your employees, productivity goes up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But try selling that to a businessman who was a small, medium enterprise, and he's made that company from scratch. And he says, are you going to tell me how to run my business? So unfortunately, I don't have an answer to your point, but I I can second everything that you're saying, and truly, I was hoping that the 4 days that I spent here, I can get something out of it. One of the points, and I'm so sorry if I'm rambling on, that really clicked was the role that the government or perhaps can actually play, and on the loan side, where the point was made that your loans can be cheaper if you follow certain.
Yes, excellent example.
I thought that was, like, for me, that was a light bulb moment. That is how some of the partnerships, at least the ecosystem that the public sector can create, or the government or the state can create, is really important.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Indras, I'm independent expert. I want to touch upon a couple of things that I was mentioned. One of is we've here for a number of years, even before the LKSK started, about the voluminous amount of audits.
LKSG is the German Supply Chain Act, for those who are not aware.
Thank you. And of course, different standards companies face in terms of compliance. As we speak right now, there are still new certifications and standards being developed as well. Ironically, that is accompanied by a gap in the support given to companies such as yours. I think you mentioned it, the gentleman from Bangladesh. My question to the panel is, number one, is it possible? Do you see a way forward where perhaps there needs to be a minimum standardization across certification compliance? And the second one is that, is it also possible to, or rather, would you like to see greater involvement of governments, or maybe the UN, or maybe trade associations, to ensure a minimum level of support given to companies down the supply chain, support given by large European companies, for example, who falls under LKSK or CSDDD, for example. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was the perfect moderation back to the panel, because looking at the time, it's also about to be 5 p.m. Thanks a lot, everyone. We will see each other over the next couple of days. So if you have any idea still on Wednesday or on Thursday or on Friday, just come to us and share it with us. We will take it away. Thank you so much. And maybe we go to Mustafiz, and then everybody can have the final words. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I would like to respond to his question very quickly. So we actually have started in Bangladesh. It's called Unified Code of Conduct. That's, we are making a unified code of conduct, compiling all the things, all the social and environmental compliances. So that is going on, and I hope it will be happening very soon. So second question, we have in our association, it's called Responsible Business Hub. Actually, where from we are actually supporting all the members down the line, everywhere. I mean, whoever need any support for to understand what's the due diligence and all the compliances. So that's the support, that's the advisory support we are also giving to the members. But the last word I wanted to say that it's a wonderful session, and I really thoroughly enjoyed. And I would like to say that compliance, I mean, the due diligence mechanism is just not for free. It has a cost that everybody has to understand. Otherwise, as a business owner, we'll be, if we cannot make profit, we'll be out of business. So that is what I can say.
I was going to offer a response to the lady with the indigenous voice, but she's gone. On her topic of her question, though, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol is currently revising its guidelines on what is sustainable energy and how it can be claimed transparently by brands under Scope 2 emissions and what counts as a Scope 3. So hopefully that includes such considerations as impacted communities, especially by things such as hydroelectric and onshore wind. So let's hope that's coming out next year. On a bigger topic, what's my message? Electrify everything and do it sustainably. There we
go. I'll be very short. Thank you for inviting us. It has been a wonderful session, and the organizers, and special thanks to GIZ, of course, for not only giving us this platform, but also giving helping us the association to establish the Responsible Business Hub, from where we are taking up all of these initiatives that are very, coming up, very important for our industry. Thank you.
Okay, and just, excellent session. I take with me a lot of inputs also for the coming year. It reiterates my belief in the fact that sustainability will not be sustainable if we are just talking about documents. Sustainability will be sustainable if we really work at the intersection of making ourselves, the businesses, industries, manufacturing more efficient. That's I think the core of it. Responsible production, responsible consumption. It links back to all the goals that I can think of. So that's something that I really take back. We have to work on that intersection because, no customer, like I think you said that also, Michael, no customer at the moment, even I'll not take myself out of that, no customer is willing to pay a higher price for things. So it's up to us in the industry to work and find ways how to do it more efficiently, how to do it better, how to do it with less harm, with a lot of zeros, and find the way forward for the next decades. So excellent session. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I wanted to respond briefly as well, just because the topic came up of why is it so difficult to bring companies here? And I think companies increasingly want to do what's right, as we see, but it is difficult to keep companies engaged on these topics in times of global crises especially. One of the member companies I reached out to when I asked if they wanted to take a few days away and come to Bangkok for this session, the immediate response was, I would love to, but I can't come, and you have Trump to thank for that, because they are scrambling in light of the trade, the tariff war. I think
maybe Ruxana, I just also add a point. Sorry for
Sure.
that. I think there's also a very important topic that I've noted down and I'll take back with me. It's not just about doing good, but also talking about it. So at the moment, I think the companies are doing a lot of things because I see in the landscape, especially the automotive landscape, there's so much being done, but very less is publicized because we think it's business as usual. And of course, the cost pressure is always there. Nobody's going to pay more. So I think there is a need in the industry for such forums to showcase the best practices, learn from each other. The industry bodies especially also need to work on these best practices to make the owners aware that, how to run their businesses in the next decade. So I think I support that. I think people are doing a lot of things, but maybe nobody is willing to travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahil, for taking the time to represent IGCC's members and also wanting to always work on this intersection that sustainability and business value. And thank you to the rest of the speakers as well. Michael, you can have the closing remarks.
Have a safe travel back to your hotel and enjoy the evening. Thank you so much.